Hey everyone, welcome to Make It Rock, the show where I show you how I make it rock and how you can too. And I'm Thomas Christ, the host of Make It Rock. How's it going, puppy cats and kitty dogs out there? Let's see who we got here in the chat. Leela, thank you so much. One of our great mods here, putting all the great links in there that you can follow and take action on if you like. We got my lovely wife, Amelia from Lurkland, here with us. Doug Kidder, new guitar caused me to lose focus. I mean, yeah, that'll do it. That'll do it. Hello, Wolfstone Studio. Welcome. All right, so we're talking about bold. Bold, baby. Making it bold. Guess we're we're doing this. I'm certainly somebody I like making it. If you like to make it bold, let me know. Say it in the chat. I know Jade Slar likes to make it bold. What's up, Jade? Welcome. Thank you for sending everybody over here. Great show. And Leela before that as well. Hello, Tremor Bear. Welcome. Good to see everybody. Be bold or fuck off. See, that's bold. That's what we call bold. So anyway. Yeah, you could make it bold, and I think you should. I think that's a thing that you should definitely do. And hello, John Swanson. So we're gonna take a look at some stuff over here. This is from Mark Shea. I don't know Mark Schaefer personally, but I'm sure he's a very nice human being. And he's got a little blog here. The thin line between bold marketing and brand suicide. So I like this already. So last week he analyzed the fantastic promotional video from Apple. We know Apple. We know, and we love Apple, right? We're mostly Apple people. Some not, but through the lens of Audacious, a book that describes a framework for disruptive and bold marketing. After reading that post, fellow marketer Mandy Edwards sent me another new video. This one from KFC UK. You could have a lot of fun rearranging those letters. And asked, what do you think of this one? Today I presented a story of audacity that went horribly, horribly wrong. Let's see what happened when a company tried to create a chicken-based cult. See, that's bold. Making a chicken-based cult, that's pretty bold. But it could work. So why we need to disrupt our marketing? Before I get to this ad fail, let's back up one step and discern why companies need to focus on bold marketing today. Some of the main points in the book. About 2/3 of ads register no emotional reaction with their audience. None. Nothing. It should be a lizard-based cult. I agree. That's bold. That would be bold. Dull has been normalized in most industries. So if you break a norm, you might just find marketing gold. I mean, like that is very true. And if you look at the design in like our phones and operating systems and websites, everywhere you look today, things are very bland. Like we have kind of fallen into some very bland aesthetics of late. You could look at design. Look, you can look at design of like architecture. Like, look at how many of these box stores, like all these, the fast food restaurants. They used to have very distinctive branding. They used to be, the golden arches and all this stuff. And then now you look at them and they all look like they're, some kind of corporate, box. Just a gray box. Everything's a gray box. All the store, all the Wendy's. Wendy's used to be very distinct. Pizza Hut. Remember Pizza Hut? There's the roofs, you could look them, and you could look it up online if you've never seen the old school Pizza Hut. It was very distinctive. And now everything is a gray box. Everything is in a little gray box, and it's nice, and it's very, very safe and very plain. That's kind of been the aesthetic. I imagine we're probably at that tipping point where it's like we need to get away from that. Consumers respond to storytelling that is refreshing and new. Young consumers today love quirky content and offbeat humor. You're damn right they do. And finally, if all you need is marketing meh. AI can accomplish that. If you're only competent, you're vulnerable to job replacement. Competent is ignorable. So yeah, with AI out there, we all have to. I suppose we all have to step our game up a little bit because the AI can do. It can just shit out crap. But if you want to do something a little better than that, you're gonna have to. We can definitely do it. We all can do it. We're smarter than AI. Because AI is us. They're just stealing from us and making things. So we can do it better because we're the original source of intelligence. The Audacious book presents a framework anyone can use to do this. Disrupt the narrative, the medium, and the storyteller. Now let's get to the heart of the story. So KFC. I knew when I heard the chicken-based cult, I was like, this is gonna come back around to KFC, isn't it? So KFC created a video that certainly broke industry norms. In this ad, UK agency Mother London urges customers in a busy world to believe in chicken as if it were a new gravy-based religion. You know what? I'm gonna take the risk. I'm gonna take the risk of playing this. I imagine it might get claimed or something. We'll play it. I won't make it full screen though. I'm gonna keep talking over it. All right, there's this guy. Look at this guy. There's a chicken. Guy seeing a chicken. Look at that. And here comes, what's this? A vest. A person. What the heck is going on here? It's a long commercial, 2 minutes. Right, they're all scattering away. Oh my god, the giant egg. Giant golden egg. I love this. There's chicken in that gravy. Hey, Sean Chandler, welcome. We're just watching an ad about chicken. That makes sense on a music show. All right. I'd be very confused if I was seeing this on TV. How does this get around to KFC? Okay, it's like baptizing the person, I guess. It comes out of chicken nugget. Believe in chicken. Okay. That's something. Oh, we're not watching that again. All right. So, Audacity and gravy. How did KFC shake things up? 3 ways. Obviously, this ad broke industry norms. Yeah, I'd say so. Usually they just show like the chicken and then they say like you should come to KFC. We got this chicken and it's really good. Look, it's got the seasoning, it's got some hot chili. If modern, it probably has hot honey on it cuz that's everything has hot honey now. But no, we get this crazy ad. So obviously, this ad broke industry norms. Perhaps there's never been a promotional video like this in the history of fast food, at least not one featuring a lake of gravy. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty safe to say. The company was appealing to Gen Z's penchant for quirky humor. There's a subtle connection to purpose here. If you feel lost, you can still believe in chicken. Everything in the world is changing, but KFC has always been there for us. Is it really chicken? We don't know. We don't know. There are precedents for this offbeat, bold marketing approach that have been wildly successful. Liquid Death, which is the coolest name for bottled water. It's literally bottled water. You think it's like, hello, Fat Panda Cat, welcome. You would see Liquid Death and you would think that's got to be like some kind of, like I don't know, malt liquor or something, right? But it's just water. It's literally that's all it is, just water. Nutter Butter tripled its cookie sales with fever dream TikTok videos. Okay. Duolingo stood out in an established doll market of language education with an unfiltered owl. Fat Panda Cat hates a bad KFC. So if KFC was following the audacious playbook like these brands, why would it receive YouTube comments like, I cannot possibly imagine how any person thought this was a good idea. I'll never eat at KFC again, nor will anyone in my household. They should fire their entire marketing team. This video is an unmitigated disaster. They took a big swing and struck out. Here are 3 reasons why. Yeah, hey Pete Johns, welcome. Yeah, you didn't think we'd be talking about chicken on a music show, but here we are. There is a common thread among 3 successful case studies I mentioned. They had nothing to lose. Liquid Death was a disruptive startup going against Coke and Pepsi. And hey, that's the thing. We, as independent musicians, are a lot like Liquid Death because we're going up against Taylor Swift. We're going up against, I don't know, who's popular today even. I don't know. All these popular artists, and we're just like tiny, speck in that universe. So we really have to like make some big waves if we're gonna get any kind of attention at all. Likewise, Duolingo was a new way to learn that had to attack the industry establishment. Yeah. But unlike Coca-Cola, I've never killed anyone. Well, that's a good point. So Nutter Butter is an older brand that had no real meaning to consumers. It had been forgotten, so it had nothing to lose by reintroducing itself to Gen Z. So that kind of makes a lot of sense there because, really how, Nutter Butter, that was a big thing back in like the 50s, 60s, something like that. Maybe 70s, but yeah, kind of like disappeared. I mean, it's been there. It's, you could still buy it, but they probably had to shake things up pretty big time. So should an established brand like Coke advertise like Liquid Death? No. Coke has built the century of goodwill in the consumer's mind. Would Oreo ever take a page from the bizarre Nutter Butter playbook? I like this phrase, the bizarre Nutter Butter playbook. I just find that a fun phrase to say. Hello, Flow Farm, welcome, good to see you. No, Oreo is #1 brand in its category. KFC is the biggest chicken franchise on earth by far. It has built decades of memories and thrown them away into a lake full of gravy. Instead of building on its heritage creatively and renewing its deep meaning with the new generation, it's taking a step backward. So we are seeing here, this is an example of where going bold doesn't work for everybody. Even in music, like if your style of music is like chill acoustic music or ambient or something like that, maybe bold isn't the right choice for you. But if you're kind of in bombastic rock music, then that's probably where you want to go. We're being polarizing because we want conversation, said Martin Rose, executive creative director of Mother London, told Ad Age. Essentially, we're creating our own cult of fandom. But this seems like a desperate attempt to be the new cool kid. And besides, too, some taboos can't be broken. This is interesting. My book is a rallying cry for those who will not be ignored. There's a lot of advertising of books and things in here, but I also caution that being audacious does not mean you're doing something illegal, reckless, or offensive. The Advertising Standards Authority, ASA, the UK's independent advertising regulator, received nearly 600 complaints about KFC's commercial. The complaints include people saying the ad promotes cannibalism, it glorifies cults and Satanism, and that it mocks Christianity and baptism. I did catch that last bit of it there. I remember when Garth Brooks went bold with his what was that? He had that alter ego. I can't remember the name of it. The Garth Brooks alter ego. I don't remember the name though. See, it must not have been very effective. So, a lot of famous ads receive complaints from the offended. Is this really knocking religion or is it just silly? I would argue that it's just silly, but that's... Oh, yeah, Chris Gaines. That's what it was. Chris Gaines. You gotta hand it to him for, it's not every day that a country star shakes things up like that. Now a lot of famous ads receive. Okay, we talked about that. Language in the company's description of the ad reinforces the offense. Fear not, for salvation and sauce is near. Trust in the thumping sound of the golden egg. Trust in the liquid gold elixir. Trust in the divine drink, the divine dunk, and whisper the sacred words. All hail gravy. Yeah, you can't do that one. Why? I don't know, but you can't apparently. The phrase repeated in the Bible most often is "fear not." So of course any Christian would be offended. Of course they would. I don't know that they would need to be. And then there's the gravy dunk where a person turns into fried chicken. No, also no. It didn't bother me, but I guess it might be bothering to somebody. Apparently 600 people that wrote complaints in. It's just gross is number 3. The ad didn't just offend people who don't prefer cannibalism. So they had to put it that way. The people that don't prefer cannibalism. So pretty much everybody except for like maybe a tiny like 1/1,000,000th of a percentage. Like those 3 people out there that are just very into cannibalism. But everybody else apparently was offended. I don't know about that. It just upset everyone in the ad industry. One commenter on Marketing Beat called the ad disgraceful, describing it as degrading and disturbing. Others labeled it vile, uncomfortable, and horrendous. Like I don't know. We just saw this commercial and I just kind of thought, like, if they aired that during the Super Bowl, I wouldn't be shocked at all. Because that's kind of like par for the course these days. Cannibalism, food for McCann. Yes. One marketing industry observer noted, "I've never complained about an advert before, but this is beyond the pale." Wow. So getting out of the gravy. I don't want you to be dissuaded from bold marketing and taking risks because of one bad ad, which I actually thought was fairly good. But we should reflect on. But I'm weird. But we should reflect on how something like this ever sees the light of day. When an ad becomes public disaster, one of 4 things has happened. Tremor Bear says, "I thought it was weird and dumb, but not offensive." Yeah, I mean, yeah, I kind of liked it actually. I was like, "This is cool." The only thing with it for me is that it's like that's become a real trope these days of like big brand does weird thing, like weird advertising. You've almost become desensitized to it because I know in February when Super Bowl time comes around, which is the big commercial, they have the big commercials, and I know that all of them are going to be really weird, but it's going to be like Coca-Cola at the end of the day. It's Coca-Cola, it's Budweiser, it's mostly all the big companies. There'll be some AI stuff, I'm sure, AI Chat GPT or whatever will probably do ads. But they're all gonna be weird because every Super Bowl ad is weird. Like that's what you remember. You remember the weird ads. It did look. See, that's another thing. It did look a little unappetizing, maybe. But gravy in and of itself, gravy is a hard sell. Because gravy is a liquid brown. It's liquid and it's brown. And I don't know that there's a way to make that not look kind of gross. It always does look kind of gross, doesn't it? As that stupid KFC is reminding me of silly ads like Old Spice. Yeah, exactly. Old Spice. It certainly won't be the Steelers, but they are weird. Okay. Anyway, so the internal political fear, this is the biggest problem I observed by far. When a powerful company executive falls in love with an idea and forcefully champions it, agencies hungry for that next paycheck nod along like bobbleheads. Corporate minions fearing for their cubicles become a chorus of yes people. Lack of diversity in the creative process. If the team behind an ad campaign lacks diverse perspective and backgrounds, they may miss potential blind spots or fail to anticipate how certain groups could perceive the ad negatively. Having a homogenous team increases the risk of tone-deaf messaging. This all sounds... I'm going to be bold to say that this all sounds very not bold to me. Because I think being bold is about, not paying attention to a lot of this stuff. But overconfidence and lack of external review. Respected brands can sometimes become overconfident in their marketing abilities. Hello, Dan Eckberg. Somebody sent me the old Super Bowl commercial for Doritos with the finger glory hole. Yeah. Oh man. They always do weird stuff. Respected brands become overconfident in their marketing abilities and fail to get sufficient external feedback before launching a campaign. Big brands often mistake their logo for a shield of invincibility. This insular approach prevents them from catching potentially offensive or controversial elements. And then, 4, failure to consider the current cultural context. Ads that may have been acceptable in the past can become problematic if they fail to account for evolving cultural sensitivities and the social climate around issues like race, gender, body image, etc. In other words, when executives put egos above common sense, gravy happens. Being remarkable matters, bold marketing matters, not all risks are created equal. Keep pushing edges, but remember what you stand for. So it almost sounds like this guy here is saying, be bold, but don't be too bold. Because if you be too bold, you might just you might upset the apple cart a little too much, and you don't want to do that. So, what's the reality of the situation? I think this is heavy-handed. This is heavy-handed. Now, I mean, some of these things about race and gender and body image and stuff, I think that is, to me, that's common sense. It's just common sense. You be respectful of other people and just be respectful of other human beings. So I don't have any issue with that necessarily, but everything else on here and finding such minor satirical things very offensive is just I don't know. I think that's not being very bold. I think sometimes you have to challenge some of these conventions sometimes. And sometimes great advertising, especially from a brand like KFC, which let's face it about KFC. Like, KFC is not going out of business tomorrow. I don't care what happens with this ad. I don't care how many people write YouTube comments saying they're never going to eat KFC again. There could be a big wave of veganism that takes over the world, which would be a pretty nice thing, I think, for the environment and everything. And KFC will still stand. They may have a down period. They'll adjust. They'll add more vegan options to their menu, and they'll survive because they're KFC. They're a huge company, and lots of things would have to go disastrously wrong. They pretty much have the monopoly on fried chicken in a fast food context. There's not many people even doing that. There's Popeyes and stuff, but they're not as widespread. They're not as well known across the world as Kentucky Fried Chicken. So I say this not to say anything about Kentucky Fried Chicken so much as what we do with what we have. They never thought they would go there. Pete John says, how many people were never going to drink Bud Light again? Guarantee 95% forgot all about it and went straight back. Yeah. Well, no, that is exactly what happened. And not, none other than Kid Rock, who was one of the biggest champions of that whole ridiculous movement, then went on like CNN or something wearing a Bud Light hat. And it was like, oh, what happened? I thought you were against that. And he was just like, oh, well, mumble something. Yeah, he was shooting the cans. And then a few months later, he's on CNN with his Fox or whatever it was. He's on there with a Budweiser hat. It's like, apparently you forgot what you're even mad about. I don't think you were that mad about it. All right. So this is another one that's a little more targeted toward our interests. So 5 ways to use bold color in music website design. As a musician, you craft songs that will engage listeners' emotions. Website design should do the same thing while remaining on trend. You want the vibe to evoke a memorable feeling. And I really feel like it's very important that the image that you present out to the world, like, I should be hearing your music before I even hear it because I've seen it. And what I'm looking at is already telling me a lot of information about what you're going to sound like. And you should really work to, in all your design from your website, your YouTube channel, your album and single art, should all convey the sound that you're going to be hearing. And you should almost be hearing it in your head once you see the image before you even before you press the play button at all. Pete says, yeah, you really showed his spots, didn't he, Dan? If you had any doubt about thinking Kid Rock sucked, he removed all doubts. Fat Panda Cat, selling Bud Light is usually tied into a contract with selling other Anheuser-Busch beers. They were never going to have a huge impact. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, getting back to this, clever use of color is a great way to capture attention, set a mood, and influence your website's visitors' impression of your band. To help get your website off to a vivid start, we added a new bold mood to the theme chooser. I don't know what the theme. I guess this is some kind of all these things are it's a dual purpose. It's information, but it's also advertising. But that's everything in the world today. So your website is an ideal place to convert curious listeners, emphasize your call to action. They made it to your website, after all, into true fans. The best way to direct your website's visitors' attention is with a prominent call to action with a palette of bold color choices. The Spotlight template, featuring a universally appealing image that's suitable to most artists. Okay, so we're just selling stuff on here. Maybe this is all that this is, but we can probably learn some things from it anyway. Choose functionality over aesthetic. The concept of brutalism, which I love. I'm a big fan of brutalism, actually. Not just because it has the word brutal in it, but that's part of it. It's been rising in popularity within web design for its raw, stark look. This means prioritizing direct effectiveness in your music website instead of a flashy, over-designed feel. The brutalist notion of practicality and clean lines played into the selection of colors, fonts, and imagery used in these contemporary design choices. So yeah, so you can just do, it can literally just be like text and a bright color, like really bright colors and just text. There is that. That is an option, just like a sans serif font, right there. So it's kind of like what they're demonstrating here. Choose a colorful stock image. Many musicians get tripped up trying to find that perfect image of themselves to display on their website, and understandably, band photos are an important part of building your brand online. However, you can design around that by using stock images that convey your vibe and use your posed band photos on your About page. So that's another possibility. You can definitely get into with marketing yourself out there. Is you don't always have to use a picture of yourself. And I've kind of shied away from that in recent years, and I don't think I was ever really a big fan of it because I think back to the album covers that I liked and the album, the design that bands that I liked used, and to me, a lot of those were not necessarily they weren't necessarily pictures of the band. They were pictures of spaceships or, scary creatures or something. It wasn't, a lot of times it wasn't a picture of the artist, but sometimes it can be that. Hello, Ed Zielinski. Welcome. So a lot of possibilities there as far as using stock images. You can get experimental, take risks in your music. I think that's really important. A bold template choice might work well to carry that energy through to your website. So, Fat Panda Cat, I think that now we don't really have album cover to grab attention. The creativity needs to go into the band logo. That's important. And one of the things that I do on that line is with every album, and I think I've done this pretty consistently. I've always changed my logo with each album. So, you could probably go back and find 19 different Thomas Christ logos and maybe more than that. Because there were a few where I got into a new album cycle and the album didn't happen. So there's probably a few extras in there. But always changing the logo up but it always keeps the core elements. There's probably going to be a T and a C in there somewhere. One of the coolest album covers ever was Santana's Abraxas album. All right. Well, you know what? Let me we can talk about that, or we can actually take a look at it. So let's see here. Let's see if we can find this. Okay. Dan says I'm staying away from a website for now. I got the Later app because you can set up a free link bio in it. Yeah, it's a big question as far as whether you actually need a whether you need a website or not. So this is what somebody's got a higher resolution of this image somewhere. There we go. I hope I don't get in trouble for showing that that one. But yeah, that's pretty bold. That's pretty bold. It's hard to read the text though. That's probably my only complaint about it. It's a little bit hard to read the text. But yeah, that's definitely a great album cover. Just remembered it from childhood. Yeah, definitely. So then we come to try a new font for inspiration. That's another thing that I like to play around with. Is I'm always trying to find new and different fonts. I think that's a good way to do it. And again, it's like the fonts can tell you something about the music. So if you have more like electronics type music, maybe you have a more computery looking font. If you have metal, well, you know what some of the metal bands do. They have that stuff, and you can get fonts for your computer. That's all that you can't read it. It's all like branches and stuff. And I have a few of those fonts. I don't really use them myself, but you could. Prince doing the symbol was a genius move. Yeah, the artist formerly known as Prince. He had that little symbol. That was a cool idea. I don't know if I'd go so far as to say like this is my new name, because that's what he literally did. He was like, no, I am no longer Prince. I am this unpronounceable symbol now. That may be a bit too bold. We talk about too bold. That may be too bold. I don't know though. But but if you're not ready to switch your design up, you could try a new font to liven up your band name. You can also change your content font. Even a small tweak like updating the style of your text can breathe new life into your website or your YouTube or Bandcamp or whatever you got going on. Facebook doesn't really allow you to do too much, but so there we go. There's some ideas for like some bold marketing for your music. Then we have here 10 artists who made a bold departure on an album and it worked. All right. So the first one is Bring Me the Horizon with Ammo. So for their first studio effort in 3 years, Bring Me the Horizon peeled back their metal foundation on Ammo. Bring Me the Horizon embraced influences that once felt impossible. EDM, pop, and rock flourishes all persist across the record's 13 tracks. So they definitely went in a different direction there with that. That was a bold choice. 100th with Rare. Prior to Rare, 100th had never ventured outside of creating melodic hardcore, but on their fourth album, the quartet forwent the manic breakdowns and 30 screams that found a home on their first 3 full lengths. A welcome mutation on all fronts, the record plunges listeners into a visceral new world filled with guitars that feel spacey and mellowed out vocals. It's as if they're carving out their own galaxy. So there's another one. Weezer, Pinkerton. So that's a pretty big name there. Pretty big album. So lyrically, Pinkerton was the inverse of Weezer's debut in every way imaginable. Songs about ditching cars for surfboards and looking just like Buddy Holly were abandoned for every last declaration of despair and lovelorn lamentation that permeated frontman Rivers Cuomo's murky headspace. It was such a drastic mood shift that it was universally hated, and then years later universally adored upon release. Cuomo once compared the songwriting to drunken confessions that felt mortifying rather than liberating upon waking up the next morning, and it's an attitude that's taken decades to undo as it's ascended into cult emo status. So that was, and Weezer is a band that when I think of Weezer, I do think of lots of bold choices that have happened over the years because they've changed their sound many times, and sometimes in one album, there'll be a variety of sounds and a variety of influences, and it doesn't all just sound like kind of the early Weezer stuff that was kind of like emo punk, pop punk emo, somewhere in that world, but they've experimented with a lot of things. The Tweezer album, Stuck the Colors, as well. Yeah. Pinkerton for the win. Pink Triangle is wacky, crazy, weird goodness, and El Scorcho. Yeah, El Scorcho, fantastic stuff from Weezer. So that's another band that has made some really, really, really bold choices throughout their career. Then we have Turnover with Peripheral Vision. Inspired by frontman Austin Getz experimenting with psychedelics, Peripheral Vision saw Turnover setting their pop-punk roots for a dream pop sheen. Equal parts atmospheric and interpersonal, the whole album feels like a wandering through the most surreal chapters of a Haruki Murakami novel, or maybe just spending a dazed afternoon self-reflecting on every aspect of yourself while watching nature documentaries on mute. I love their descriptions in here. These are some really great descriptions. You have Paramore, After Laughter. When Paramore released their Hard Times music video, it captured the band trading their pop-punk past for 80s swank, incorporating pastels, new wave worship, and slapback delays galore. Things had definitely changed, indebted to Talking Heads, Blondie, and Paul Simon. Paramore added the emo flair of records past, laying instrumentals that fizzed and popped over top bummer lyrics that reflected Hayley Williams' sadness and uncertainty. Easily their most honest album, After Laughter, is the culmination of being exasperated by being told to just smile through the pain while living through the exhaustion of being alive. Brad Example says, my favorite album covers are Blood, Guts, and Pussy by the Dwarves. Songs About Fucking by Big Black. I know that one. It's funny because you would think it would be the other way around, but yeah, those are some solid choices there, Brad. And so Panic at the Disco, pretty odd. Like Weezer, Panic at the Disco experienced rapid success when they released their debut, A Fever You Can't Sweat Out. So when they followed it up with Pretty Odd, an album that recreated the Baroque pop magic of classics such as The Zombies, Odyssey and Oracle, and Beach Boys' Pet Sounds, fans were instantly turned off by this bold departure. See, this is the thing. It can backfire sometimes. Stripped of the dance-ready emo pop passages and verbose sensationalism that made their debut a lesson in theatricality, the band opted for sun-kissed melodies and a glass half full attitude instead, all washed in 60s psychedelia. So, though they would go back to pop punk for every release after. Wonder why. I think you got this. Remember these? So these were a big thing. I can almost like. I don't know exactly when this came out, but I could almost kind of put it at a point in time because there's the guys with these bicycles, the big huge wheel in the front. There was a little time, and my guess is this is probably around like 2010, 2011, somewhere in there, maybe 2009. But yeah, this was a thing for a minute. It was like, okay. Beastie Boys, Country Mike's Greatest Hits. Beastie Boys went through a lot of evolutions during their time together, both hip-hop heads and punks. They began as openers for great acts as Bad Brains, Misfits, and Dead Kennedys. The group even played CBGB in an early incarnation of their lineup. Their heel turn from frat boy rappers mostly over stolen Led Zeppelin riffs to crate-digging innovators on Paul's Boutique changed sampling forever. But did you know they made another pivot? As a prank, I love how they released an album just as a joke. That's funny. So the Beastie Boys thought it would be hysterical if they recorded a full-blown country LP as a Christmas present for their friends and family. So they did. The evidence is pretty damning. Mike D adopts a half-assed country twang and utilizes the genre's most cliche tropes, and it only gets more wild from there. You know what? This is actually making me really want to listen to this because I didn't know about this one. Pete says here, one of my favorite Aussie bands, Regurgitator, had a song they released called I Like Your Old Stuff Better Than Your New Stuff. Then they remixed it as I Like Your Old Remix Better Than Your New Remix. Gotta own the bold sometimes. Yeah, that's it. Well, Beastie Boys definitely did that here. And then we got this guy here, a Mr. David Bowie. David Bowie, of course, Young Americans, product of David Bowie's fascination with soul music, renouncing his glam rock era that began in 1972 with Ziggy Stardust alter ego. Sandwiched in between Diamond Dogs and Station to Station, Young Americans was drenched in Philly soul and R&B influences. From the opening sax note of the title track to the funky pulse of Fame. That's a great song. Bowie only ever alluded to this new direction. Now he was entrenched in it, recruiting a young Luther Vandross to provide backing vocals in a bold departure that's fun and fresh. See, that is bold, but Bowie was the king of bold. I think he was kind of known as being a chameleon, shape-shifting with every album. And so that's not surprising to see David Bowie on this list. You got Childish Gambino with Awaken My Love. Bowie could be on the list several times. Tin Machine. Oh, I'd say like every Bowie album from the very beginning on is, he was nothing if not bold. He just did whatever the hell he wanted to do, and at the time, and it usually led to great stuff. Yeah, he made it his business to change on the regular. Yeah. Always reinventing. Always reinventing. So Childish Gambino, Awaken My Love. Rather than relying on the fat verses and punchlines abundant across his past two albums, Donald Glover swerved hard, leaning into psychedelic soul, acid rock, and funk influences in the ultimate tribute to his P-Funk elders, Parliament Funkadelic. Love Parliament Funkadelic. Make my funk the P-Funk. Glover introduced an entire generation to their wacky brilliance on 2016's Awaken My Love. The guitar solo of The Night Me and Your Mama Met nods to Maggot Brain's Out of Body title track. Meanwhile, Glover's voice warbles with the same theatrics as George Clinton's on Zombies. Put Can You Get That on the same playlist as Have Some Love, and you might not be able to tell the difference immediately. One thing is certain, witnessing Glover commemorate P-Funk is like peering into his record collection. It'll effortlessly send you down multiple rabbit holes of black music history at once. So that is really cool, and makes me kind of interested to hear some of that. And then finally, we got Bad Religion, Into the Unknown. Bad Religion's second album, Into the Unknown, was a bold departure from their debut. This release sounds vastly different from their first album, and nothing like anything in their discography since, drawing from prog rock and heavy-handed synthesizers. Bad Religion explored more adventurous avenues by immersing themselves into the 70s. Gone were the speedy quips that shined on their debut, whereas the songs on that album averaged 2 minutes. Into the Unknown experimented with expansive songwriting. Time and Disregard is their longest cut ever, clocking in at around 7 minutes. Though, that's 7 minutes. That's not that bad. I guess if you're usually around 2 minutes, that's pretty crazy. For a punk band, that's like nuts. That's, but for prog rock, 7 minutes is pretty tame. But so disdained by the band, it was only reissued for the first time since its release as part of their 30th anniversary vinyl box set in 2010. Given that Brad Gurewitz owns the masters, it'll likely never surface on streaming platforms either. So there you go. So I guess I can't even listen to it. But that's just some ways that you can be more bold, like these artists. I'd also think about like Jefferson Airplane when they became Jefferson Starship and they became like more of a prog rock band. That was a bold change. Parliament Funkadelic, yeah. Parliament's awesome. But Kylie Minogue as well. Remember, she dropped the Pop Princess label and released the Sexy Indie album. See, there's a lot of great artists that constantly reinvent themselves. That's really, 7 minutes. for somebody who does prog rock, that's nothing, but um for a punk band, that's insane. So, what we can learn from all of this is that we got to be more bold. Like some people get up in the morning and they like a strong cup of coffee, dark roast, bold. You know, some people they smoke unfiltered cigarettes, bold. Um, Tremor Bear, I met Grace Slick. I was much prettier back then. Nice though, nice. Uh, Kylie's Do It Again music vid had all the different Kylie personas. It is rad. Of course, I like grunge Kylie best. That's awesome. I remember seeing the Offspring play live. I think they had played over 20 songs. That's quite a show. Like not everybody does that. I'm sure they definitely have the catalog to do it. So it's great to see you got your money's worth there with that one. But yeah, bold things. You know, we gotta be bold. We gotta take risks. We gotta think outside the box. I know all this stuff is kind of cliche in a way, but then again, is it cliche? Or is it just like one of those universal truths that are always there? You're gonna get more attention the more waves you make, and so make some waves. There's one after she dated Hutchison, I think Pete about 94ish. All right. So yeah, and Kylie Minogue, definitely somebody who wasn't afraid to live bold. She was about that bold life, and I think it's a good. It can be a good play. Now it is risky. There's inherent risk. You saw it with the KFC thing at the beginning. You know, whether you agree with the criticism or not, I don't, and I think a lot of people probably. But there's some group of people, and you know, it's all about risk and reward. So it's like if you know that what you're doing is going to make some people unhappy, but it's you have a bigger potential to gain. And I think the smaller and more unknown you are, the more falls in the reward category when you think about boldness. A lot of things are going to fall in the reward category because what do you really have to lose? Not that much, if anything at all. Now, if you're a bigger, more established artist, the more that is the case, the more that risk, the more you think about that risk section. You're like, I don't know. But you can see here, these artists, they all took chances. Now, some of these examples are very highly thought of. Some of them not so much. Some of them are hated, and some of them are hated initially, and then they're liked later on. I think it also comes back into this whole kind of thing of like when you first start out as a musician, as an artist, as a brand, as a thing. The whole palette, the whole playbook is open to you. You can do anything. Once you've done that first thing, though, now there's precedent. And now you're starting to get, hopefully, some people interested in what you're doing. The more that happens, they start to like that thing that you did. And then you have to think about your next move. Because, you know, there's going to be a group of people that were very, very committed and very much enjoyed what you did in the past. But then there's another group of people that are out there who might like something else that you could do if you'd go in a different direction. They might like that, and you might get a bigger group of people, but you lose some of those original people. Every band has gone through this. And you make a decision like, am I going to cater to those fans that I had originally and kind of keep doing what it is that they like? Or am I going to explore new avenues and try to gain new fan bases, a broader fan base or a different fan base? And that answer is never easy to come to because It really depends on your personal situation. It depends on what you want to do because I think it's important as an artist. Like we sit here and we talk about, well, you could attract this group of people, you could attract that group of people. You could make your music more appealing to a broader audience. You could narrow your audience to a more specific niche. But I think there's a real. We're talking about an artist, and I think part and parcel of artist is that there's something that you want to create. There's something that you want to share with the world. And you don't necessarily know what that is. Um but you probably do have a sense. You probably do have something that animates you. And that's going to be the most important thing. Because you can cater to all this different stuff, but if you're not catering to yourself first and foremost, then what are you doing? You know? Cuz then you're just a product. You're you're almost letting the audience. It's a thing called audience capture. You're almost letting the audience dictate what you do instead of you doing what you do, and the audience is what it is, which I think is a better way to go about it. Now, is there some strategery and all this stuff? I'm sure there is. Varying degrees, depends on the individuals. Depends on the situation. Depends on the situation. But you know, the most important thing is to be true to your own artistic vision. Don't worry about what other people are thinking about it. But then when you go to promote the thing that you're doing, then you kind of think a little bit more about, well, how do I take this thing that I've made because I wanted to make it, and how do I make it so that other people will be interested in it as well? And that's where the boldness, I think, really comes in. It's not so much in what you're creating, because you don't want to um you don't want to let outside factors dictate what you do, cuz then you lose what makes you you. You lose what animates and inspires your creativity, and I feel like that is a very, very, very bad um consequence of too much audience capture. So you shouldn't really. I don't know that you should do music. And there's always exceptions, and there's always um asterisks on certain things. But you don't want to let people out there dictate what you do. And it matters if you have 2 fans or you have 2 million fans. Don't let those people dictate what you do. But once you do what it is that you want to do, that you want to market to other people, then you have to think about, okay, how can I relate what this thing that I just did, how can I relate it to other people? So that's where that's where a bold strategy might come into play in terms of how you present this thing that you've made to the world. You know, it's kind of like you could create a back scratcher, and you could sell. You create the back scratcher to be a back scratcher. It's going to be something it's going to have to actually work. But then you have to figure out a way to market this to the people, because first of all, hey, if you down on the shadowy figures, I took a little break for a couple years after making songs. Many songs, I was satisfied with them, but not totally. I spent the last couple of years trying to figure out what I wanted. Yeah. Sometimes you got to take a little time to think about that kind of stuff. But ultimately it comes down to, you have the back scratcher. It's a back scratcher. It does what you expect it to do. But how you present it to the world. If you just say, "Hey, I made a back scratcher," it's just like all the other ones. Well, then that's not really catching people's attention. But if you put a skull on the back scratcher, it's a skull, and the scratchy part looks like a claw or something. It looks like looks like a skeleton hand. Then all of a sudden you've got a novelty product that's really unique. You can scratch their back with anything, but you've got this with a skull on the end on the handle, and it looks like a skeleton hand. Now it's cool, you know. Now it's different. So that's where and that would be bold. That would be a bold thing. So be bold. If you want to be bold, if you feel like it serves you well. We'll just read this real quick here. In all music documentaries I've watched, the albums where band chase success are sold out as always when they're the unhappiest, and usually there's usually their least favorite album. Yeah, that's what's gonna happen when people let the audience dictate the music instead of making the music they want to make. It's never gonna be satisfying because that's not what you came for. But I hope this is what you came for. I hope you hit that like button if you haven't already. Tomorrow I gotta get to work actually in a little bit here and finish up the U Rock TV for tomorrow. Thanks to everybody who submitted for that. So that's gonna be happening tomorrow, right after Leela's gonna do live performance, and then Jade Starr has a show, and right after that will be the premiere of U Rock episode 205, U Rock TV episode 205. Got a lot of great songs, so make sure you come along and check that out. And other than that, Jade Starr has a member stream, so if you're a member on Jade's channel, you'll be bounced over there. I thank you so very much for watching. I really appreciate you checking out the show. Much love. Take care. Keep rocking. Bye, everyone.